What's the name?
Hello, folks. How are you? Hi, Dolores. Hi, Kay. Hi, Dolores from YouTube. Hi, Lana. How are you? Hi, Catherine Class. How are you? And Go Start says, how do? Go Start, also known as Steve. Please share this. I have no idea what we're competing with tonight, but I'm sure I'll need all the help I can get. As you know, last night I was doing an analysis of Jordan Chariton's interview with Joe Geevarghese, but Geevarghese, who was the president, of Our Revolution. And I believe last night I had so many comments to make on it that I got through about 7.5 minutes of what was nearly a half-hour interview. So I hope to be able to find fewer points to disagree with this evening. But I'm immediately going to move to the video to restart the critique and hopefully complete it tonight. So thank you for coming, and I hope you like this. I think it's actually very worthwhile because it reveals what's happened, to our revolution in terms of its strategy and how it really has caved away from the basic policies that it supported for so long. And whatever man greets Lana and says, hi, Lana. Carmen Muniz says, hello from Miami. Hello, Carmen. Now, you're in Miami tonight? Are you usually in Miami? Aren't you usually somewhere else in Florida? Perhaps simply traveling. Anyway, let me share the screen for you. I'm going to start this a little before I ended yesterday because I did miss something that I really wanted to point out. So I'm going to start this about 58:41. And I'll check to see that you're getting it okay.
Movement. I organized the healthcare movement around Barack Obama to get him to, when he was a state senator in Illinois. Change does not happen overnight, right?
Okay, did you catch that? Change does not happen overnight. I couldn't agree more. It doesn't happen overnight. I've been waiting at least 12 years for change. That is not overnight. I never expected it overnight. I expected to have to work hard for a long time to make my contribution to bringing about some change. I don't need someone to tell me right now that change doesn't come overnight. I don't think anybody who's been immersed in this political system for the last 20 years needs to know that change doesn't come overnight. Certainly not change for the better. Change for the worse may come overnight. That may happen very quickly because our neoliberal system is incapable of providing change that actually helps us. But it's certainly the case that good change doesn't come overnight. It's a terrible struggle, and it rarely happens. So I really didn't need to hear that. But what I do want to note is that that's a platitude. And people like Joe Geevarghese frequently talk in platitudes like that in order to put down people who are more progressive than they are, who want to see change coming faster. And they just want to have excuses for supposedly playing the role of change makers, but not really bringing the change. And in fact, year after year, seemingly trying to create less and less change for the rest of us through their actions. Anyway, I'll go on now.
Unless you want like violent overthrow, dictator, and that's not what we're democratic socialists, and we are advancing to that vision. And what has happened in the last 5 years of our revolution since it's been founded has been remarkable. The political conversation and the strategy.
Okay, so no one here on our side has suggested change through any but democratic means. That is the use of free speech, free assembly, yes, the use of elections, okay, the use of free press, the use of all the tools that we have a right to make use of in a democracy. So why did he bring that up anyway? Why was it a relevant remark? Is he trying to say that people who are advocating for things that are more progressive than he is advocating for somehow are looking for the violent overthrow of the government? I don't know, but I really wonder. Why did he bring that up? Anyway. Okay, by the way, I'm checking with you now to see if my sound is all right. Is everything fine with respect to that sound? Before I go further, please let me know. Catherine Class says, Obama gave up the public option. He certainly did. I'm not sure he was ever serious about it anyway. I don't think he was. Okay, is my sound okay, folks? Great. Okay, I will go on then with the video.
That was put in place has transformed our country. But the thing is, we can't just say, oh, it's been 5 years of our revolution and say we want to fight now and win these victories. Change does not happen overnight. I've been organizing for over 2 decades. I helped lead the Fight for 15 movement. I organized the healthcare movement around Barack Obama to get him to own when he was a state senator in Illinois. Change does not happen overnight, right? Unless you want like violent overthrow, dictator, and that's not what we're democratic socialists, and we are advancing to that vision. And what has happened?
We are democratic socialists, and we are advancing to that vision. Okay.
In the last 5 years of our revolution, since it's been founded, has been remarkable.
In the last 5 years, the change has been remarkable, he says. Do we have $15 an hour? Have we gotten to Medicare for all, okay, in the last 5 years? Have we been able to enact any part of the Green New Deal during the last 5 years? Have we got paid family leave yet? Have we got Social Security expansion? Have we got free college? Have we got student debt elimination? Where is the remarkable progress we're supposed to have made in the last 5 years? I want to see it. He sees it. Let's see what he has to say about it.
The political conversation and the strategy that was put in place has transformed our country. But the thing is, we can't just say, oh, it's been
transformed our country. We talk a lot more about these issues. And yes, we've had 2 campaigns where people have been very active. And yes, we've had conversations which are different and more vigorous and more energetic. But transformed our country? Joe Biden just said, or last year he said when he was running for president to people, nothing will fundamentally change. From their point of view, nothing had fundamentally changed, and he reinforced that by saying nothing will fundamentally change. So Joe Biden certainly doesn't think that the country was basically transformed over the last 5 years. Certainly not for the good. If it was transformed, okay, in any way, it was transformed by the advent of Donald Trump and the advance of fascism in our society.
In 5 years of our revolution and say we want things to change, right? It's never the way things work.
In 5 years, okay, of our revolution, there have been no concrete changes in the policies of the United States along lines that our revolution wanted to see. Change doesn't come overnight. Yes, we know. Evidently, it doesn't come over 5 years either, because this organization hasn't been successful, okay, in bringing it. And they don't want to tell us that. Okay, they don't want to apologize for that. Instead, they want to pat themselves over the back and say, we have fundamentally transformed the country. We in our movement have fundamentally transformed the country. Well, by the way, the Not Me, Us movement does not belong to our revolution. It does not belong to Bernie. It is about us. Remember, it's not me, us. With that in mind, let's go forward.
In our reality.
I think this is actually a good, interesting point, because I think there needs to be more of a debate. So there's a lot of people who are saying, okay, that's fine, but we don't have time for this. People are dying now.
Yes.
Look at coronavirus. So many people, unnecessary deaths because they didn't have health insurance. So what you're saying to a lot of people might sound like feeding into incrementalism. And for this long game strategy to lower it here, tinker around here, what would be your rebuttal that, okay, but ranting and raving and not organizing is not going to get it done?
Right.
So Jordan asked him a tough question, and it was a reasonable question. Okay. People want faster change. What does he say to that?
Right, we will be worse off just ranting and raving.
Ranting and raving. Well, certainly, ranting and raving is part, of what we do because we're in pain and because we see no change happening. So naturally, we have to vent. But nobody said anything about just ranting and raving or only ranting and raving. He's putting up a straw man.
And not saying, you know what, we got to hold, Joe Biden ran on Medicare, and he would have dropped it but for the progressive movement. He ran on expanding it. He said it. You know what, we should hold him accountable to what he campaigned on.
So he wants to hold Joe Biden accountable on what he campaigned on. Outside of ranting and raving, he wants to do that. He wants to hold Joe Biden accountable on his campaign promises. Well, how about holding Joe Biden accountable because he hasn't moved towards what we wanted? What we wanted. Yes, hold him accountable for his campaign promises, but hold him accountable for much more than that because his campaign promises were inadequate. He's broken almost every one of those inadequate campaign promises. And as yet, he has certainly not moved towards what we wanted him to do. Remember, we reluctantly supported him because we really had no choice. If we wanted to get rid of Donald Trump, we were in the usual bind created by the two-party system. Is he proposing that we do something about the two-party system? No, he's not proposing that. He's proposing we hold Joe Biden accountable for his promises. By the way, did he promise to do something about voting rights? I think he did. Did he promise to do something about the John Lewis Act? I think he did. Did he promise to do something about the Republican takeover of democracy? I think he did. Yes, we should hold him accountable for all those things. But not just those things. Why is our revolution now aiming so low?
Right now, we will expand health care for millions of people. But Medicare for all, if we just focus on that and don't focus on what is realistic strategically in this moment to get to that goal, we're going to lose our pathway to the goal.
Okay. He's saying we can get something. We can get something when it comes to Medicare. But if we just focus on Medicare for all, that's another little piece of gaslighting. Guys like this can't avoid the gaslighting, it seems. No one has said that we have to just focus on Medicare for all. What we've said is that we have to put forward Medicare for all, that we want a vote on Medicare for all, that people are dying now and that they need Medicare for all, and that people who claim to be our revolution representatives, who claim to be representatives of the US movement, should be pushing forward Medicare for all. Nobody said to only focus on Medicare for all. If after we struggle and struggle and struggle, the best we can get is some progress towards Medicare for all, sure, we'll take it if we're forced into it. But what I think that Joe Geevarghese is saying, or is trying to say here, is that we should push for, we should fight for reducing the age, of Medicare from 65 to 60 and expanding coverage to dental, vision, and hearing. An expanded version, of Medicare for all for everybody over 60. Now that is better than a kick in the head, but it's not what people need now. It's not what the people under 60 who are dying because they don't have health coverage or who will die because they don't have half coverage. Because it's not what they need. It's not what we advocated for and fought for as a basic vision. And it's not what we want our representative organizations to fight for. What we want from them is for them to go for Medicare for all. And if they're forced to compromise on something less, well, of course, if they have to accept it, they have to accept it. We understand. But we don't want them to celebrate it as a victory because there's a little bit of a nudge towards Medicare for all. For us, Medicare for all is a moral value. Supposedly, for our revolution, it was a moral value. We're not going to celebrate having to accept something short of fulfillment of the moral value. Going on.
Can I ask you about strategy too?
Sure.
Separate from forced to vote and all these other things?
This is all strategy.
This is all strategy. This is all strategy. What kind of strategy is it? He just said, we can't get Medicare for all. We can get this little thing. We can get this expansion to 60 and over. So let's go get that. That's part of a strategy. Let's hear more about that strategy.
No, I'm asking because I see a lot of protest around the country, whether it be Sunrise Movement, Medicare for all good things. I don't really see a lot of discussion about economic protest. You know, we're seeing the strikers in Alabama, the strikers in Topeka, Kansas, Amazon workers are organizing. There's so many people in kind of different islands protesting different things. I don't see as much organizing, let's say. Why don't we organize? You're not going to get a general strike overnight, but why don't we organize against one company more than a day and see what happens? What is your thoughts on the...
So there's Jordan holding a general strike out as a goal to this guy, asking another very good question, saying, well, we can't get a general strike overnight, but we can get strikes at particular plants, maybe particular industries. Why can't we organize that? Let's see what Joe Geevarghese has to say.
Economic
about that
aspect of this, because the politicians answer to the donors. So possibly if you affect the donors' bottom line, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, look, it is incumbent on the American labor movement and workers to rise up in this moment. And your viewers may not know this, but the genesis of the Fight for 15, and I was one of the key architects of the national strike movement, the genesis of that in 2013, late 2012 into 2013. Why did workers go on strike? They went on strike. Low-wage fast food workers, low-wage Walmart workers, port truck.
starting in 2012 and 2013. 9 years for the fight for 15. And we still don't have 15. And this guy is congratulating himself for being one of the organizers of the fight, as if that fight has been successful across the whole country, as if that fight was history. When, just a few months ago, we lost that fight in the Senate with barely a whimper, because Bernie allowed Schumer to get away with putting a bill on the floor, not the bill that came over from the House, but a bill that lacked the $15 an hour provision for a minimum wage. Bernie did not say to Schumer, "You put that on the floor, Chuck, and I'm going to vote against it. I'm going to tank that whole vote." this reconciliation bill shall not pass without the $15 an hour in it. Not only did Bernie fail to do that, and not only did our revolution not call for that, but our progressives in the House, when the bill came back to the House without the $15 an hour provision in it, they didn't immediately kick it back to the Senate and say, sorry guys, here's the bill again with the $15 an hour minimum wage in it. We are not voting for any reconciliation bill that doesn't have the $15 an hour minimum wage in it. On this side of Capitol Hill, that's a no. You decide whether you want to tank the American Rescue Plan or not. We're throwing it back to you. It's up to you now. Now, I'm not saying that would have stuck. What I am saying is, at the very least, a conference committee could have been gotten out of that, and substantial progress towards $15 an hour could have been made. Years ago. Okay, so going on.
Drivers who are independently, who are misclassified as independent contract last night, we generate strikes all around the country, thousands of workers, because Barack Obama and Joe Biden did nothing. And so, and then we force change, right? People like Bernie and Keith introduced the $15 minimum wage. We moved the political establishment. The problem is workers should be striking right now. We need labor, the labor movement, to make the same mistake as we made in two.
So he needs labor to do something. He needs labor to get active. Okay, so is our revolution out there? Are they hammering labor for not supporting the fight for 15? Are they hammering labor for not having strikers out there all over the country? No. He's saying, we need labor. We need labor. At this point, it's their responsibility to step up. Are they ever going to step up by themselves without being pushed by our revolutionary organization? Our revolution? What is our revolution strategy to push labor to get them to fight for 15? Because much of labor hasn't been fighting for 15 at all.
2008, which is access, going to meetings at the White House, and hoping for hope and change, right? You've got to do both outside protest, strikes, and then you win policy. And that's what we did in this fight for 15. We fundamentally, right, it was inside and outside. That is the blueprint that Keith, that Bernie, that our revolution is carrying out.
Oh, and by the way, Kshama Sawant had that kind of blueprint, okay, as well. I notice he never mentions her name. But okay, the point here is, yes, we agree on the inside-outside blueprint. We certainly do. But what is our revolution doing that is outside? They are outside. They are not inside. What are they doing to push the people inside to get us what we want and what we need?
Right. Workers need to strike.
But in this moment, do you think economic boycotts could be a component?
I think economic boycotts, look, at the end of the day, but I think workers need to go on the street and say it is unacceptable that the federal minimum wage is still $7.25. It is unacceptable that this president has done nothing to grow the labor movement. The labor movement is the backbone of the Democratic Party, troops and treasure. If we want to win in the future, if we want to defeat Trumpism, if we want to win Ohio, you got to rebuild unions. When unions were strong, we created a progressive country, civil rights movement, health care, social security, right? But This president has not yet lifted a finger to grow the American labor movement. As vice president, he was the chair of the White House Task Force on Middle-Class Working Families. He was Obama's good job czar. And you know what? Union density fell more on Barack Obama's watch under Joe Biden as the good job czar than it fell more then than it did under George Bush, his predecessor. That's unacceptable. And so we can't allow that to happen again. And we need the labor movement to challenge the establishment and support workers who want to aggressively strike.
What I'm asking.
Okay, so what is our revolution going to do to get the labor movement to do that? What is our revolution going to do to get the PRO Act specifically through the Congress? What is our revolution going to do to get the filibuster out? Because certainly, if you don't get the filibuster out, you're not getting the PRO Act. You're not getting new union movements. You're not getting an expansion of unions. Not without that. So what is our revolution strategy to get that? I haven't heard a word of strategy. I haven't heard a word of strategy from Joe Geevarghese yet. Have you? Perhaps I'm missing something.
Protest is good. Having your voice heard is good. But wouldn't the common sense perspective, if you add protesting with your wallet?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Because it doesn't seem like there's much strategy for that, not just among our revolution, but period. Like, imagine if the George Floyd protests, millions of people around the country, even 1/10 of those people protested, whether it be Amazon, Walmart, big box.
So you are beginning, you're right, there should be a popular economic uprising by consumers. But the problem is we live in an economy that is controlled by monopolies, right?
So he's agreed in principle that we should use our economic power to try to get concessions. He's for that in principle. But now he's saying the problem is, let's find out what the problem is.
We have corporate concentration in every industry, so it's hard not to go to a Walmart or use Amazon Prime, and right, I mean, they have taken, and that's not what we want. So what's encouraging that I think will set the conditions precedent for economic strategy and organizing, boycotts, grass up, is the anti-monopoly movement that is now coming into its own. This is incredible. And, you know, we have an executive order from Joe Biden. It would not have happened but for Bernie, Elizabeth Warren, and progressives organizing, right? Like Keith Ellison, Attorney General of Minnesota, one of the leaders in this fight. We have one of the boldest executive actions to bust up concentrations of corporate power like Amazon, right? We have David Cicilline holding hearings, moving legislation. We have Lena Khan, right, who one of the foremost thinkers on corporate concentration, heading the FEC. We have Cantor just appointed, right, to DOJ to break up big companies. I think there's a moment where if we organize economically, we say we're going to withhold dollars, we're going to start using government regulation to break up market concentration, allow others to rise up. I think there's a shot, right? And that's good because part of our movement is not just organizing from the bottom up. You got to take power on directly. And what matters to Jeff Bezos? Size, right?
What exactly is he talking about from the standpoint of our revolution doing anything? What is the strategy, of our revolution to help people use our economic power in order to exploit these breakthroughs in the Biden administration to break up the monopoly concentrations of power? We're all aware that that's a problem for us. We're all aware that Biden has done a few things which appeared to create an opening. But what is our revolution doing What will they do to facilitate this? How can they help to facilitate this? Where is the strategy from Joe Geevarghese to exploit this?
Size, control. So we need to make sure his company does not exist in its present form, and Walmart and every other aggregator, right, in our economy. So that's what our movement's doing. We are trying to organize from bottom up, and we're using the levers of power to destroy concentrations of power. And I think consumers have a role to play in that.
2 more questions.
Yeah.
So how is he using the levers of power to destroy the concentrations of power? He's not really telling us how he's doing that, what his strategy is. He's just telling us at a very high level what he would like to do with our revolution. But how does our revolution do that? And how does our participation in our revolution help our revolution to do that? In other words, what are the strategic steps that our revolution is going to take? Has he enlightened us about any of that yet?
Listen, I'm going to be direct.
Yep.
There was a report out that our revolution is kind of rebranding as pragmatic progressives. That really is a little concerning to me because I've never heard of a revolution that's pragmatic. Obviously, their strategy, yes, but a lot of people hear that and say, oh, they're selling out. What is this idea of being pragmatic progressives? Because we did have Hillary Clinton in 2016 say, Bernie over there, he's a radical. I'm a progressive who gets things done.
Yeah.
And this sounds kind of like that, pragmatic progressives.
And I think if Paul Waldman, Washington Post, wrote a column explaining that the headline of the AP that Pro Sanders Group rebranding is a term of art. No, we're not rebranding. We're not changing. What we're talking about is strategy. We are going to get progress towards Medicare for all. We have a theory of change to leverage concessions from people in power. We're going to get shit done. So for all those who didn't read the rest of the article, who are just using the headlines and then using their social media accounts, join us. Let's win something instead of just sit on your, in front of the TV.
Okay. What's the theory of change? We have a theory of change. Tell us what the theory of change is. Tell us what the strategy is that exploits this theory of change. Who said anything about sitting in front of a television and ranting and raving? We certainly didn't. Why is he implying that others are doing that? And he is doing something different with his theory of change, which he's not telling us anything about.
And watch, whatever you do and tweet. Right, let's go and fucking get Medicare for millions of more people right now. It is possible. But going out and saying we need a Medicare for all vote, we're going to lose it. I can count votes. Can the rest of the left? We don't have the votes, but we do have a shot, right? It's not rebranding. Bernie Sanders, the Progressive Caucus, we are consolidating power to make progress.
So,
Okay, the Progressive Caucus is consolidating power within the caucus among fewer people, getting consensus with respect to those fewer people concerning what to do. They're trying to put people together, to create a weapon that can do some concrete things in fights against the corporates, and the centrists. We know this is going on, but it has been going on for some time. We've been hearing this stuff since the end of 2020. We heard it in January when the squad refused to deliver on force the vote, not only with respect to Medicare for all, but more importantly, with respect to replacing Nancy Pelosi. So we've heard this before. It's August now. How long does it take them to consolidate power in the caucus? How long does it take them to get people together and to get people to constitute a bloc that will all vote at once? And by the way, if they can put such a bloc of people together, then why can't they use that bloc right now to get Nancy Pelosi to vacate the chair? If Nancy Pelosi was not the speaker, do you think we would have had this eviction moratorium crisis? If Debbie Dingell was the speaker, or Jan Schakowsky was the speaker, or Rosa DeLauro was the speaker, or Karen Bass was the speaker, but do you think the House would have adjourned? Do you think they would have adjourned, leaving people with no eviction moratorium? I don't think so. That was Nancy Pelosi. That was Nancy Pelosi who did that. If Nancy Pelosi had not been speaker when the reconciliation bill was coming up for a vote, if someone more friendly to the left had been speaker, then are you sure that $15 an hour minimum wage would have been cut from the reconciliation bill? Are you sure Biden and Schumer would have gotten away with that? Biden, Schumer, and Manchin and Sinema? I'm not sure about that either. Obviously, Nancy Pelosi was prepared to fold because she didn't care about the $15 an hour anyway. Going on.
I'm actually asking because I don't, honestly, I think progressives, including the squad, have been bad at communicating what their strategy is. So I'm glad at least we're hearing it, because a lot of people just jump on to like that they're selling out because they're not really communicating why they don't think force the vote is a good idea, why they don't think. So I want to ask you, basically what you're talking about is let's chip away while we don't have the White House, while we don't have the Senate, while we don't have Congress. Let's chip away at getting lowering the age, getting expansion of benefits, while simultaneously trying to seize power so we could go all the way. And that's what it sounds like to me. Yeah. That's what it sounds like to me. That's right. So on the opposite end, what is our revolution's rebuttal, or trying to get people to join you in saying that that's we've tried this strategy of, playing along with the Democratic Party, working within the system, and it's gotten us 40 years of the money hoarding to the top, the planet burning, and on and on. We can't do this through the Democratic Party anymore.
Well, look, in the world as it is, right, in order to get, right, Saul Alinsky, right, we organize in the world as it is to get to the world as it should be, right? I am grounded in the reality of power, right? We need to organize money and organize people. I'm grounded in the reality that we have a two-party system. I am grounded in the reality that we have made transformational change by organizing and taking over the party at moments. Has the party been taken over by corporations? Big money? Yes. But that's why, you know what we're doing? We are running people for precinct captains. We're taking over Democratic parties. We're creating progressive caucuses. The Democratic Party is a gatekeeper to democracy in our country. So no other group on the left is systematically doing what we're doing. That's one. Two.
Right, getting some victories, to be fair.
Yes.
The Nevada state, the Democrats in Nevada took over.
Right. And, we've, built progressive caucuses in state parties. But in addition to the party, incredible wins. And you're going to be hearing more about organizing within the Democratic Party within the next few months, nationally, as well as around the country. But that's key, right? Within the world as it is, you can't just say, we're going to ignore Democrats and Republicans and go start the, around the corner club, right? I mean, if they can, good, do it. But I have not yet seen it result in anything tangible. So we have to, and maybe both are worthwhile, but what we are doing is we think we can infiltrate the Democratic Party, take it over. We can run for these offices. We can be the precinct captain. Citizens are not engaged. Progressive citizens are not engaged in taking over the Democratic Party. We should do that. That's the first lever of power. Then.
Okay, so isn't it 6 years that they've been doing this, that they've been engaging in this effort. They've taken over the party in Nevada. Congrats. What about Ohio? How about in the 11th District of Ohio? Did they take things over there? Have they taken things over in South Carolina? Where have they taken things over and where have they not? What is their strategy for taking these things over? And what is the progress of that strategy? He's very vague about all this. He says nobody else is doing this systematically. How do we know that our revolution is doing it systematically? We don't see that. We don't see a scorecard anywhere. We don't see progress anywhere. What we do see is that after 5 or 6 years, there's very little control of state-level Democratic parties by progressives. We don't have control in California. We don't have control in Washington. We don't have control, in Oregon. Other than Nevada, where exactly is the Democratic Party controlled by progressives? That was the only case Jordan knew. Otherwise, he would have mentioned some others. Joe did not volunteer any others, right? He just said, we're the only ones doing that systematically. What's the nature of the systematically? Does that mean that you're going from one to a second to a third? Is there strategy and tactics for taking over these parties? What have the results been? By the way, there's nothing wrong with the basic idea because the Democratic Party is comprised of the 50 state parties. That much is true. And of course, the Democratic National Committee. And you can take over the party by taking over the 50 state parties. It's an awful long process, though. Change doesn't come overnight. We've been trying to do this now for 6 years. If we've got only 1 or 2 states where we've taken control, maybe Nevada and Vermont, let's say, how many years is it going to take to even get, let's say, majority control? Folks, we have less than 10 years to get control of the climate emergency. If the only way we're going to do it is through taking control of the state Democratic parties one by one, against fierce resistance from the corporatists, we can, as the old saying goes, kiss our butts goodbye, because we are not going to survive the climate emergency.
We should build a bench. Over the last 5 years, we've elected over 700 progressives, right? School board, city council, state senators. These people are going to graduate up. Right.
We have elected over 700 progressives. We have. Who are these progressives? What kinds of policies do they advocate for? Where is the scorecard of the 700 that have been elected through the efforts of our revolution? He says we. Who's we? Is we our revolution? Is the efforts of our revolution responsible for these 700 elections? Or is it the us movement at large? And if it's the us movement at large, where is the scorecard? And what are the policies advocated by these so-called progressives, the 700 already in office? What are the policies they are in favor of? I don't know. And he's not telling us. He's not giving us websites to go to. He's not giving us scorecards to cover. He's not giving us lists, okay, of policies. He's just BSing.
Right? This is the infrastructure of the progressive movement. Progressive party, we need to build, a bench of progressive champions, right? And then we got to fight like hell on our issues, but we got to win along the way. You can't wage an unwinning war for decades and inspire people, right? We should take whatever victories we can as we march towards our ultimate goal. And that's what we're doing. Is we are 110% committed to Medicare for all, and we're going to win a down payment on it if the community, if the left,
if we're 100% committed to Medicare for all, then why isn't there a floor vote on it? Now, he said we don't have the votes, we're going to lose a floor vote. But we will get people on record as for or against Medicare for all. In a way, we don't have them on record now. Yes, we have co-sponsors. We know there are 117 co-sponsors. But we also know co-sponsorship often doesn't mean that you're really for a bill. It's a signal you send to people, but it's not really going on record by voting for the bill. It's not really exposing yourself to negative ads from your opponent because you voted in a particular way on a bill.
Progressive unites. Stop the circular fucking firing squad. Demand action now. Bernie Sanders is going to help us get millions more covered. Why are people not rising up and saying yes?
Okay, why are people not rising up and saying yes? Bernie Sanders is going to help us to get millions more covered. Maybe because Bernie Sanders is not calling for everybody in, nobody out. He's calling for people over 60 to be covered. That's what he's calling for. Is this supposed to get people who are 55 excited? Is this supposed to get people who are 50 excited? Is this supposed to get 35-year-olds excited? 25-year-olds excited? What's going on now is segmenting of the public. Instead of everybody in, nobody out, it's the supposed spearhead of the progressive movement saying, get excited. We're going to get an extra 23 million people in, all of whom are 60 and over. So get excited. Pat us on the back. Give us credit. Give us all kinds of money for doing that. Because isn't this a great thing that we're getting 23 million more covered? I got news for Joe Geevarghese. Maybe it's not news for him. Alan Grayson was proposing 55 and over back in 2009. And that wasn't enough to get people excited. Why? Because that wasn't everybody in and nobody out. As I said before, if you have to compromise in the end, you compromise in the end, sure. When it comes down to it, we're all pragmatists and something is better than nothing. But if you expect to retain political support, it is not very pragmatic to replace everybody in and nobody out with people 60 and over in and everybody else out. That isn't the same. I'm sorry. It's not going to get people equally excited, even if it gets Joe Geevarghese, who's getting paid to do this job, excited, because he thinks if he gets this done, he's going to keep that job.
The president said he would do it. Let's make him do it. We have a path to get this done. It is remarkable. But yet, people on the left, and look, a lot of them, I don't, you know, a lot of them I invite them, come and get involved. Let's carry out the strategy because we can do this. We should not be divided. We can make progress towards our vision.
Do you think the circular fight?
Maybe, just maybe, the strategic goal for them is not the same as the strategic goal for Joe. His strategic goal for the moment, his immediate goal, is to get that piece 60 and over covered. And he's excited about that. He seems to lack, though, the basic understanding that people under 60 may not be as sufficiently excited about that to put their shoulders to the wheel in backing this movement to get people between 60 and 65 covered. Yeah, it would be nice to get them covered. I mean, I'm willing to fight for it. I'm willing to advocate for it, but not as a replacement for Medicare for all now. What you need to do is you need to go forward with Medicare for all now. Get as many people as you can supporting it inside the House. Make people go on record. Get the floor vote. Make people go on record. Let's see which Democrats dare to vote against everybody in, nobody out. Let's see how many of them are going to do that. He talks about the 117 co-sponsors and the 106 who are not in there. I happen to think some of those co-sponsors are false co-sponsors, and they're going to vote against it. I also happen to think lots of those 106 who don't say they're co-sponsors won't want to vote against the preference of 88% of Democratic primary voters. Yes, we know from polls 88% of Democratic primary voters are for Medicare for all. Let's see how many votes that's really going to buy us. It may not be enough. I'm not suggesting it's going to be enough to pass it in this House. But it may be they can get 170 votes for it, which would really give a kick in the pants to the movement. Not only that, the act of putting it on the floor is going to create a mass movement of people coming to D.C., standing outside of the Capitol, chanting for it, demanding it, telling their stories, getting covered by the press. That is worth something. That is something pragmatic. That is how you get support for something from legislators. Put enough people outside of that Capitol. Don't tell me for a minute that's not going to matter. Get a 2 million person march or a 3 million person march to D.C. to support the people who want to vote in Medicare for all, and let's see what Congress does. I'm not saying we're going to win that, but I am saying that the stir and the pretty close vote for it is going to create a boom that's going to move more people over to the Medicare for all side. And that is going to create an environment where there's pressure on the Democratic Party to do something beyond the present system, really beyond the present system, not just taking 5 years off of it, but maybe coming, if it's a close vote, maybe opening the way for a bill to be introduced that cuts it down to 45 and over or 40 and over. Some much better compromise bill along the way. Why isn't this guy fighting for Medicare for all as a moral goal right now? I think it's because he doesn't want to split, the Democratic Party. He doesn't want to put Joe Biden in that bind where he has to veto the Medicare for all bill. Of course, that presumes it would pass the Congress. It may not pass the Congress, of course. We know it may not pass the Congress. Now, we have to be clear. Medicare for all can't all be done through a reconciliation bill. But much of it can be done through a reconciliation bill. And parts of it that can't be done through a reconciliation bill can be done through sidecars, which the Republicans may not be willing to vote against. Of course, everything would be facilitated here if the Democrats could pressure Manchin, Sinema, and others to get rid of the filibuster once and for all. By the way, if they don't do that, there's going to be hell to pay in 2022.
Firing squad. I mean, let's just call it what it is. You got YouTube hosts battling. Yeah. You got Twitter on fire. Right. Do you understand why? Look, wait. Do you understand why a lot of those people are frustrated, are angry, are cynical?
What do you mean why?
Do you understand that a lot of those people that are, fighting and there's a lot of tribalism going on the left right now, why they're so hopeless, why they're so angry?
Well, I think there's a lot of people just talk the talk, right? They want to have audiences and make money and monetize platforms, right? And get eyeballs.
So, there it is. There is the marginalization of people who are independent journalists or independent commentators, independent analysts, who are giving their opinions concerning Medicare for all. All we're interested in is views and clicks, and monetization. That's why we're here. That's why we're doing it. That's the reason for the circular firing squad. It couldn't possibly be that after 5 years, our revolution has made hardly any visible progress when it actually comes to legislation. Couldn't possibly be that, could it? Couldn't possibly be that the progress of those who chose to collaborate with the establishment is so agonizingly slow that people keep dying year after year after year, and that is all we see. And we see hardly any progress. And we see guys like this just grinning at us and telling us how much everything has been transformed and shouldn't we be having a party about it. It couldn't possibly be that the circular firing squad exists because they have created the circular firing squad by not meeting the needs of the movement, by not actually representing the movement, by following their own course that may have seemed sensible to them, but hasn't involved any consultation with us. Bernie talked about the Not Me Us movement, but I got to tell you, since Bernie dropped out of the campaign, there's been no us present in what he does. He makes all the decisions himself. He makes them top down. Our revolution makes the decisions top down. How did Joe Geevarghese get to be the president of our revolution? Did he run for the post? Was he elected by the membership? I don't think so. I think he was the choice of those who run our revolution. We didn't have anything to say about it. If our revolution is the representative of Not Me Us, what's it doing being run in that way?
They're not organizing. They're not building institutions in communities.
Okay. We just organized a march for Medicare for all in 55 cities right now. other organizational efforts are beginning to go on to bring the economic pain to the people denying us the things we need. Those organizations are beginning to go on right now. So he is not the only one, okay, who's organizing. When you organize, what you're supposed to do is be organizing the unorganized. Who are the unorganized that our revolution is organizing? That's what I want to know.
Right? You were at our Nina Turner rally. A sea of blue shirts, those are organized people. That's the way change happens. That is what we are doing. We're not pontificating on a YouTube show, right? We're not trying to monetize clicks. We're out there talking to people, saying, rise up. We can elect Nina Turner. We can defeat the elites, right? But it takes people power. It takes organizing. It takes knocking on doors and walking until your feet are tired. That's what it takes. Anyone can film a video and do a tweet. But, right, the real change makers are organizing in the streets. And that's what it takes.
Let me bring this full circle.
So why wasn't the organizing in the streets sufficient to put our Nina Turner over the top? We've all heard about the fantastic ground game that there was there and about all the organization that was done. If that organization was so great, why wasn't it possible to overcome that stream of mass media ads? People do not trust mass media ads as much as they trust face-to-face contacts. That's been known since the beginning of work in political science and sociology on polling and on how opinions change. That's basic Lazarus felt. We all know that. We all learn that. Why wasn't the face-to-face work in the Ohio 11th effective enough to point out the dishonesty present in a mass media campaign that told a pack of lies about Nina Turner, that flooded the airways in the last 2 weeks? Okay. An act that was suspicious in itself, throwing these ads against people. Why didn't people rebel against these ads? Could it be that there wasn't enough face-to-face and door-knocking work to put doubts about these ads in the minds of people? How come the ground game didn't work in the Ohio 11th? How come Nina lost a 35-point lead? How come our revolution did not have the organization to help to put her over the top? Now, Nina said last night at the victory party that she had raised $6 million. She said it herself. I heard it. She said it to Jordan Chariton. She complained about the $2 million that came in the last 2 weeks from the dark money, from the outside group. And well, she should complain. I'm not complaining about her complaining. I'm really not. That dark money group should not have been allowed to come in. These dark money groups should be illegal. We all know that. But they're things that have to be coped with. And we provided, including me and my family, we provided plenty of money for Nina Turner to beat this dark money. $6 million. She outraised Chantel Brown probably by 2 to 1. and that was not enough money to win? I mean, it should have been enough money to overwhelm Chantel Brown's ads. So what happened?
Cool.
Yeah.
We're less than 24 hours away. Nina Turner's election.
I need to head over to Canvas.
Okay, sorry. Real quick. This has become nationalized, this race. If Nina wins, what does it say to you? Because to me, the establishment told us over and over, no, Medicare for all, not popular here. Midwest people, they don't want nice things. They're moderate. They won't go for this. If Nina wins, what does it say? Not just for the people. It's important, obviously, for this community. What does it say against narratives that progressives just their policies, their message is not for large swaths of America?
So what I would say is, look, all politics at the end of the day, and like all organized, it's local. I really believe politics and elections are local. It is becoming nationalized because there's inordinate sum, right? The establishment, the Democratic establishment, the Republican establishment are afraid of Nina Turner. So they're expending exorbitant sums to defeat her, right? But that being said, and because of that, it becomes nationalized. And of course, the media wants to write, this race is about whether or not, the party's going to be progressive or not. Well, no, that's not true. The party is more progressive. The president is more progressive because we got power, right? We have Bernie Sanders as budget chair. We have a progressive caucus that can hold a line of votes. It's like a third party inside the Democratic Party, right? We're already ascending. So win or lose, the movement is already making progress. We're on the way. If we win, we will have a more prophetic voice to add to Congress, a strategic voice for the CPC, for the Congressional Progressive Caucus. We will have real progressive in the Congressional Black Caucus. I think that's amazing, right? I think that's great. But that being said, it's not about one person. It never was, right? Change does not happen. There's not, unless it's Jesus Christ, right? Or some other, godlike person. But nobody I've met, from Bernie Sanders to AOC, is God, right? They're not the change makers. We are, right? So whether or not Nina wins or loses, the progressive movement marches on. We have changed the country. We're going to keep doing it, and we're going to win some and lose some along the way. That's organizing. And if we lose, we need to make sure we organize more, right? Because organized money can only be defeated with organized people. If we win, I think that's great. And we still got to organize more because we still don't have the votes for Medicare for all, right? We still need to organize to get the Green New Deal, right? We're adding one more vote with this election for Medicare for all. One more vote. But we've got a lot more to do. So either way, the fight doesn't stop, right? I think progressive will be inspired and excited, but it doesn't mean we stop. We just added one more vote for our policies in a chamber that has 223 Democrats. We got to move them all, and that fight doesn't stop.
Thanks for taking the time. I appreciate it. Absolutely. So that was the Bert.
Okay, so just how long is that going to take? Do we have the time? Do we have the time to be happy over the incrementalism that Joe Geevarghese is advocating for here? Does he have, from your point of view, does it look like he has a plan to move us forward during the time frame that we have to move forward? We can't even afford to waste these 2 years we're going through now from the climate point of view. We've got to accomplish something through these 4 years. If our progressives really now have a block that they can use to hold the vote, then why aren't they taking the trouble to force the vote? Why aren't they taking the trouble to force the vote? I'm going to stop with this now, and I'm going to share the screen with a tweet thread that I did today, a tweet storm. It's what's called a tweet storm. And here it is. You should be seeing it now on your screens. I will block myself out for the moment. You'll only hear my voice so you can read this better. Okay, let me make sure the sound is fine. Yeah, I think it is. I think everything is fine. So, okay, this is a tweet storm of 25 tweets. 1. How will progressives in Congress and the squad react to Nina Turner's defeat? That depends on their theory of the case, as it were. 2. If they interpret it as evidence that a wave for establishment of Democrats is rising in the party, then they may double down on their 2021, quote, let's play nice with Mama Bear, unquote, and take the crumbs we can get from her table. 3, on the other hand, if their thinking leads them to question their own strategy of following Pramila Jayapal's lead and, quote, playing nice, unquote, they may arrive at the conclusion that when they do that, they contradict their own brand and weaken both the attachment of their own base to them and the, 4, strength of the progressive movement they rely upon. Since the deal the CPC made with Pelosi prior to January 3rd, the progressives have done little to excite their base by pushing intensely with high visibility public rallies and events for hashtag Medicare for All, hashtag the Green New Deal, hashtag eliminate student debt, hashtag job guarantee, hashtag basic income. Notice I said basic income, not universal basic income. 5, hashtag fight for 15, hashtag housing for all, and other key issues. Yes, CPC members and the squad have introduced bills on these issues, but the bills just lie there. There is no mobilization of the public behind them. CPC members are committed to following the leads of Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, Bernie, and Jayapal, while a gap opens up between them and their progressive base. That is between them and us. The not me, us, quote unquote, campaign is gone, and progressives have settled into the DC insider game, while they tone down the rhetoric of, quote, revolution, unquote, and, quote, resistance, unquote. In other words, the progressives had not been 7, watering their grassroots. And when they do that, they get weak because people lose confidence and get disillusioned. In other words, the grassroots die. The Force the Vote movement on social media was ill-conceived. It shouldn't have been about forcing a floor vote for hashtag Medicare for All, but about replacing Pelosi on January 3rd. I say that because if they could have done that, they could have gotten a number of floor votes, not just the one for Medicare for All. They could have gotten better committee assignments, and they could have gotten rules changes that would have made it easier to get floor votes when they wanted floor votes. I just interjected that. Nevertheless, number 8, the CPC should have responded to Force the Vote by supporting the concept and adapting it to replacing Pelosi instead of just rejecting the idea, which garnered huge numbers of followers on Twitter. later, they should have adapted it to voting against the ARP without the $15 an hour minimum wage provision. And number 9, forcing Biden to get Schumer to put the House ARP with $15 an hour on the floor of the Senate, on the floor of the Senate for an up or down vote. They should now connect the force the vote to their resistance to passing the bipartisan piece of crap, the infrastructure bill, until the reconciliation bill is passed in the Senate. The CPCs shift away from hashtag Medicare for All, number 10, towards a fight for Medicare for 60 and over. And the silence from the CPC and Bernie about the recent hashtag M4M for All 55 city marches has stoked a feeling of betrayal among progressive activists. Why were the CPC members and Bernie silent about the marches? Clearly, they didn't want to contribute to, number 11, conflicting messaging and also detract from their accomplishment if they were successful at getting hashtag Medicare for 60 and over. However, I think there's no question that both the force the vote and hashtag M for All events have opened up a rift between the base and the CPC/squad that has lessened support, number 12, of the squad among the base. Nina Turner identified herself with the squad, but that may not have brought her enough local progressive enthusiasm to overcome opposition from the establishment and its supporters in this context. Ironically, just as Nina was losing, the @Cori Bush hashtag squad activist effort at renewing the eviction moratorium was winning an extension from the establishment. That was too little, too late to help Nina Turner in the Ohio 11 contest. But what it suggests is that when the squad engages in activism consistent with its brand, then it has a greater chance at winning at the polls. But when it becomes establishment light and supports the power of its enemies in return for crumbs, then it weakens itself and its base by alienating both from one another. Quote, not me, us, unquote, requires that our leaders in office, number 15, make space for and listen to their base. When they cease to do so, that base will leave them and look around for others to represent them. That is happening this morning as commentators question the wisdom of progressive candidates running within the D Party for Congress. 16, the manner of Nina Turner's loss, facilitated as it was by the bitter opposition of establishment figures to her candidacy and the entrance of huge amounts of, quote, dark money, unquote, in the closing weeks of the campaign, makes the case that it is better for candidates to run third party than it is for them to run as Democrats. But before that conclusion can be definitively drawn, one has to imagine what would happen in each race if someone tries to run Green or People's Party or as an independent. In many states, third parties have a difficult time getting on the ballot, even when this is possible, and a popular candidate gets the general as a third party candidate. Are the progressives' chances any better than in the primary? Maybe, depending on local circumstances, but the devil is in the detail, is in the on-the-ground details. In Ohio, there was evidently no option for Nina to run Green, for example, and she couldn't have won in the Republican Party. So her only option was running in the Democratic primary, opening herself up to internal rigging of the election. I don't know if there was any rigging this time or not, so I'm not speaking here from a base of knowledge about that. It's just has to be a suspicion considering what happened with Bernie in previous years. Number 20. So finally, when I reflect on the events of the last few weeks, I think that real progressives must choose running inside or outside the D Party based on local conditions, and that either way, they will face a hard struggle from a Democratic establishment that has been taken over by corporate interests, corruption, and big money. And I have to wonder whether there is time to take over the Democratic Party from within or to replace them from without before the climate emergency completely overwhelms us. The only clear lesson I see from recent events is that there is nothing to be gained by playing nice with Mama Bear or Uncle Joe. But progressives out of office in interest groups need to be consistent and always advocate uncompromisingly for basic values like hashtag Medicare for All and hashtag GND. Progressives in Congress may be forced to compromise on bills due to sheer arithmetic, but when they do so, they need to always make it clear that they do so only grudgingly and under duress, and that as soon as they can, they will be pushing once again for real solutions to problems and not the crumbs they have been forced into accepting. 24. They should never celebrate or congratulate themselves for achieving some compromise which falls short of their goals, and they did as they did when the ARRA, the American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, or the Affordable Care Act, ACA, passed under Obama, or when the American Rescue Plan, ARP, passed under Biden. Without the $2,000 checks, a BI for people, and free Medicare for all for the remainder of the pandemic, and the $15 an hour minimum wage. Instead, they always need to bring the fire, because that's what we elect them to do. So I call on the squad to be the squad again and to fight for every inch of ground, loudly, transparently, and while never ceasing to mobilize the base behind them. Number 26. So this had 26 tweets in it. For the base, I think our next move have to be starting a hashtag vacate the chair movement against Pelosi, and also motivating much more consequential on-the-ground movements against the establishment than we have managed so far. We need to get hashtag money out of politics first, but this is a story for another day. That's the end of that tweet storm, and those are the lessons that I take from the last few weeks, and really the last 6 months of struggle since the progressives failed us by not deposing Nancy Pelosi on January 3rd of 2021. So, thank you for listening. I will now turn to all of your comments, as I usually do. Let me stop the sharing for that purpose. Here we are. I'm going to thank you. And Kay says, good tweet storm, Joe. Thank you, Kay. I spent a fair part of today on that tweet storm, so I'm happy you liked it. So back to the beginning, people are saying hello. Whatever man, Carmen from Orlando. And Lana says, Carmen says, yes, in Miami tonight, staying stationary for a while because of COVID. Good idea. Carmen says, oh, this crap master again. He's so full of it. Yeah, that's what I think. Bonnie says, hi, everyone. Catherine Class says Obama gave up the public option. He certainly did. He certainly did. Not that the public option would have been very viable anyway, but he was using it to get people off the Medicare for All kick. And then when he succeeded in doing that, he just gave it up because he didn't really want it anyway. Carmen Yunus says, I just stocked up shooting for 3 months. 3 months, K of ISO. Kay says, neither does Jordan need to be told that. Yes. Lana says, this guy is an embarrassment to our revolution. He needs to be replaced as the head honcho. He does. Carmen says, yes, go start staying in as much as possible. He must have been the choice of Jeff Weaver or something. All that goes wrong in the Bernie sphere seems to be traceable back to Jeff Weaver. Ghostart says, Democrats all fall in line, fall in line, fall in line. Second verse, same as the first. And Lana says, sound is fine. Thank you, Lana. Carmen says, sound is crispy clear. Great. Sounds good to me, Joe, says Kay. Thank you, Kay. Whatever Man says, Lee Camp did a piece on our revolution a couple of days ago. And what did he say? Whatever Man says, yep, sound is good. And Kay says, we get zip nada. And Whatever Man says, $15 an hour adjusted for inflation now is nothing. Yes. We need to start working for $25 an hour now. I don't even know if that would be enough. And it's got to be adjusted by the CPI across the country, by the way. Kay says, I've been waiting most of my adult life for change for the good of all people. Carmen says, funny, the federal government sure can fund the military overnight, so change can happen overnight. Look at the CDC eviction moratorium extension. Wasn't that pretty much overnight? Yeah. Ghostart said, Nina should be the nail in the coffin. Out of dem nails, soon to be out of dem coffins. And Carmen says, yeah, Ghostart, the establishment Dems are nothing but ghoulish zombies lacking brains. Dolores says, me too, Kay. Kay says, this guy is the worst one to lead our revolution. Catherine Class says, a crumb from the political table. Yes, Catherine. Kay says, I'm 68 now, Dolores Pierce. Yeah, Kay, you're a young one. Catherine Class says, wow, income-based Medicare Part B sucks. Catherine says, when you ask for less, you get less. You bet. Catherine says, never negotiate from a lesser position? Absolutely. Catherine says, even then it was an incremental way to 15. It absolutely was. Honey, I'm hearing that. Yes, even then it was incremental. It wasn't going to be $15 an hour until 2025. I mean, by 2025, we were surely going to require $25 an hour by 2025, for sure. We couldn't even get that. We couldn't even get this incremental bill that went to 2025. As time has gone by and Bernie has encountered problems getting what he wants, he keeps trimming what he wants. Have you noticed that? He keeps trimming it. Well, if they won't pass this, maybe they'll pass that little thing or that little thing. Bernie doesn't represent us anymore, folks. He just doesn't. We owe him a lot for waking a lot of people up. We owe him a lot for starting up the movement. Yes, we do. But right now, he is not representing us any longer. Ghostut says, Democrats sure got pretty mouths, yet provide no, quote, deliverance, unquote, from evil. And Dolores Pierce says, I'm 60, K. Clark Ryan. K says, not too far behind me then, although my health has suffered a lot more the last 5 or 6 years. Catherine says, who is the middle class? Equals labor. Catherine Class It says progressives are labor. And Carmen says, how's Dan Winfield doing? Have you heard from him lately? No, I haven't. I suppose it's about time to try to get him back on here. Who is our revolution? I think maybe we are our revolution. It has to come from us. Kay says, I might have found a doctor I can trust. He's older than me, laugh out loud. I have an appointment coming up, so we will see then. Dolores says, all talk. It would really be nice to actually see some action. Carmen says, I'm tired of listening to this Our Revolution charlatan. Well, I went through it in detail because what I wanted to show was, first, it is easy to refute what he has to say because it's all so empty. But also, what he has to say is what the squad, okay, and the progressives and Bernie will be throwing at us in the next few months. He is emblematic of the messaging of our progressives in D.C. Now, I hope the recent events with regard to the eviction crisis have changed thinking among the progressives, because when Cori Bush went outside and was joined by other members of the squad and by other people who call themselves progressives, like Jimmy Gomez, Al Green, and so on, when they joined them outside, they saw that had an impact. Maybe that experience will have an impact on them, and they realize they can get things through protest. They can get things through actually calling attention to the injustices that are being done. Kay says, a Bernie Brigade in California is way better. Catherine Class says, lip service. Yeah, it's a lot of lip service. Carmen Muniz says, did our revolution fund Nina's campaign? I hope they did to some degree, but I don't know if they could have funded it in an obvious way. They might have been able to get some people on the ground to work for her. That might have been possible because it might have been saleable case education. Our Revolution, though, is a nonprofit 501c3 organization. It has to watch out how it gets involved in politics. There are only certain ways that are legal. Kay says, Dolores Pierce, we need lots of action right now. Lana says, progress towards Medicare for all. Okay, dude. Catherine says, lip service. Yes. Carmen says, did this clown at least join Corey sleeping outside? No. He was with Nina all the while. Kay says, he's doing nothing. Kay says, big real estate donated to Pelosi and others in her bracket right before the moratorium came up for a vote. Yeah, that story now is broken. Pelosi was actually profiting from the eviction moratorium. Beautiful. Pelosi has to vacate the chair. We have to run and vacate the chair motion on her. By we, I mean our people in Congress have to run that kind of motion. If they can get together 40 or 50 votes, they got a lock on it. She can never be appointed speaker again. She will have to get out right now. We won't have to wait till 2023. We can get her out right now. I think her leadership during these last 6 months has been lousy, absolutely lousy from the point of view of progressives. Mama bear, shmama bear, she's got to go. Kay says, Jordan isn't a dimmy. I'm sorry, isn't a dimmy? You mean Jordan's not stupid? No. Jordan isn't stupid, right? Jordan also can ask pretty tough questions, and he can put it to them, and he can get them to say things that reveal what and who they are, and we can see who Joe Geevarghese is. Carmen says, systematically trying to reap donations. That's what our revolution is about. And whatever man says, yep, Carmen Muniz, And whatever man says, watch Lee Camp for proof. Carmen says, I can't stay that snake in the grass whisper mode he goes into. Yeah, I know. Carmen says, I can't stand correction. And whatever man says, Bernie turned himself into a joke. I'm afraid it's getting to be that way. Kay says, love Grayson. I think he might run again in Florida this time. Kay, I really appreciate Grayson too. I liked what he was doing, okay, in a lot of 2009. But like the rest of them, he caved to Nancy Pelosi and he caved to the Affordable Care Act. He did. He didn't even put up as much of a fight then as Bernie and Dennis Kucinich did. So, if you're expecting Pelosi, Grayson to be any more than an establishment politician this time, I think you're going to be disappointed. And whatever man said, this guy whispers like Joe Biden, Yeah, it's the urgent speech of soft voice. Some people express the urgency by speaking so low that you can hardly hear them. Carmen Muniz says, the anti-we the people whisperers. Kay says, Grayson might run to replace Marco Rubio. Yes. Yes, there was a spelling error. It's I-O at the end, okay, of Rubio. But, yeah, Grayson is looking to run to replace you, to replace Marco Rubio. But if he does run in that capacity, first he has to get through Val Demings, who has already declared her candidacy and who's going to be supported by the party and by big money in the same way that Chantel Brown was supported in the Ohio 11th. They'll be looking to make sure Grayson doesn't get into the Senate because they don't trust Grayson either. Now, I don't think they have as much to fear from him as from Nina Turner, but they're not going to want to let him in the Senate. So Val Demings is going to have as much money as she has in the primary, and Grayson is going to have a hard time actually raising money. Now, Grayson is very, very rich himself. He might be able to self-fund a lot of it if he really wants it bad. But still, I doubt that Grayson is going to spend $6 million on that campaign. A Senate race in Florida could end up costing $40 to $60 million. That goes beyond what Grayson can call upon privately. So he's going to have to raise money in probably small dollar donations. Kay says they should have had a Medicare for All march in Cleveland. Okay, I hear the Columbus one fell apart quickly. Yes, they should have, and Nina should have been leading it. She should have been leading it. Ghostat says, I think he's the donkey ass whisperer. But Bonnie says, has Harris said she is for Medicare for all? Yes, she said she is for Medicare for all before she said she was against it. She started out, the debates agreeing with Bernie all down the line. By the end of the debates, she had her own plan for Medicare for all, which of course wasn't Medicare for all. But she was calling it that because Harris is a serious liar. Kay says, Ohio sucks bad. And Kay says, no, she isn't Barney Firestone, which is correct. Barney says, thank you. Kay says, Harris has such a low rating, she may lose it for us in 2022. No, I don't think she's going to have an effect on the 2022 election, but I think that she's going to have an effect on the 2024 election. If these idiots nominate her because they're afraid for their deal flow, they're not going to have any deals at all. Because come a Trump dictatorship, they're just not going to get any deals. Ghostart says, tone down for what? Did I say anything about toning anything down? Kay says, good tweet storm, Joe. And Ghostart says, Mama Boar. Yeah, Mama Pig, right? And Lana says, oh my God, did you just say that? Pelosi made dollars on blocking the eviction moratorium extension. Well, I don't know whether she made dollars on the blocking, but the point is the dropping of the eviction moratorium, yes, that made her dollars. Ghostart says, our revolution's new Olympic sport, pragmatic incremental gymnastics. That's beautiful, Ghostart. I love that. Okay, I've reached the end. I hope you appreciated this because I worked hard on it. So anyway, thank you for coming. I'll be back tomorrow night with Jeffrey Ginter. And we're probably going to be talking things like Medicare for All and like general strikes. I expect that's going to be a good part of our conversation tomorrow night. So I'm looking forward to it, and I hope you are too. I hope to see you all back. And good night, Dolores. Thank you very much for everything you do for this stream. I really appreciate it. And Dolores says tomorrow will be a great show. And Kay says great discussion. Thank you, Joe and all. I love you all. And we love you too, Kay. Carmen says, fantastic show, Tweety Bird. Night. And on that note, okay, I guess I'm going to end it. And Dolores says, you're welcome. Good night, all. See you tomorrow.